Hello, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. Love is in the air today, and we're here to fall in love with Cambium Networks QoE solution. What is Cambium's QoE solution? Well, it's a small device that once integrated into your network, it can tremendously help you in so many different ways. One of the ways is it reduces your customer support calls and customer churn. This frees up your time and resources for expansion and any other needed upgrades or projects. Another way that it benefits your network is it gives you deeper insights into your network performance and allows you to implement more granular changes to optimize your end user experience. This will deliver a more profitable return on your network investment. It's all about the ROI. So the question of the day today is, how can this little device deliver so many solutions for your network? Today, we're joined by Steve Kielley. He's a North American Business Development for QoE, as well as Brandon Shears, Engineering Manager with Wyoming.com. I would like to hand it over to them to go over the ins and the outs of the QoE solution, including the user interface. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please submit them in the chat box, and we will answer as many as we could after the presentation. Steve and Brandon, welcome to the discussion. Thank you so much for putting together today's info, and the floor is all yours.
All right, well, thanks for having us. I'll give you a brief introduction for those of you who don't know me. I'm Steve Kielley. I've been with Cambium for about 9 years, specifically working with WISPs and their networks. And I've been asked to be the North American Business Development Manager for QoE, and I have to say that in 9 years of selling different hardware and software solutions, this one's the most exciting one. I've seen this be the least expensive, quickest to deploy network-wide upgrade that you can do to your network, and it's really exciting for me to have this as a product that I can sell to you and help you grow your business. With that, I'll let Brandon introduce himself a little bit, and then I'll go through my presentation. And then after I've done my presentation on QoE, just to take you through some of the features, then we're going to have Brandon go through a live demonstration of his own Cambium QoE and show you the GUI and talk about what it does for his company, and probably more important, what it does for his end customers. So with that, Brandon, would you mind just telling us a little bit about Wyoming.com?
No, sir. Thanks, Steve. I worked for Wyoming.com almost nearly since their inception in 1994 as a dial-up provider, and then as needs grew, moved up into providing fixed broadband via wireless, DSL, and fiber to the premise and home. We roughly have about 5,800 subscribers in the state of Wyoming in our coverage areas. And I'm really excited to speak to you folks about the improvements we've seen in our network based on the implementation of Cambium's QoE solution, and look forward to taking you through the GUI of our installation and show you what we're doing with it. So with that, Steve, I will kick it back over to you for your slide deck.
All right, thank you. So just to talk about some of the main features of the QoE, and I'll take a deeper dive on these, but we have a TCP optimization feature. It's specific to us. It's a patented feature, and it speeds up your TCP traffic. A lot of folks are talking about what type of traffic goes over the network. And we actually have a DPI tool that will give you visibility into that. And what we're seeing is that today, a lot of the traffic with Netflix and Amazon Prime, what have you, is 70% of the traffic is TCP traffic. We have multi-criteria traffic shaping and queuing. So I'll take you deeper into that. But that allows you to prioritize the different types of traffic, whether it's this type of a meeting where we're having interactive webinars or Teams meetings, then those can be prioritized above your streaming, and then streaming can be prioritized above what we call bulk traffic. So making sure that your end customers have a good quality of experience on those applications that are in real time and customer facing. We have a speed test detection feature. I won't talk about that too much, but bottom line is that we can have certain rules where we can prioritize a speed test above your other applications, and we can ensure that your customers, so they don't have to go in and shut off the different applications and then do a speed test. A lot of customers don't know that. They can do a speed test and they'll see the types of speeds that they're actually paying for without having to contact your support and have your support walk them through how to actually do an appropriate speed test. We'll talk about ACM. ACM is auto congestion management and detection, and that just manages the relationship between latency and throughput. And we'll go a little bit deeper into that, but ACM smooths out the latency across your network. And what we're seeing in general is about 20 to 30% latency reduction in times of congestion through the ACM feature. And then, of course, we have DDoS attacks, where we can detect that through our DPI tool. We don't stop them, but at least we can detect them, and you can take steps to isolate them. And then, what we're really excited about as well is that as a hardware manufacturer and all of the different WISPs that we talk to globally, we're getting tons and tons of input because we have hundreds of QoE instances running out there now. And that input is helping us with our future roadmap of QoE. So going on to the next slide, we have two different models. The main model is on the right-hand side, where QoE is basically acts as a proxy. And it's an appliance that sits in between the internet and your network. And it does all of the features and functionality that I talked about earlier. We do have a tower model that's a hardened appliance that we actually sell. And you can put that in smaller networks or at segments of your network if you don't want to go with the full NOC model. On the NOC model, you can bring your own hardware as long as it meets our specific requirements for our software. And those are all listed on our website, so it's easy to find. And a lot of these appliances are really inexpensive. We've been having customers tell us that they've found a 10 gig appliance on eBay that's refurbished, but it's less than $400. So the appliances are usually pretty inexpensive. You can put those in your network, and then you can load our image on the appliance, and away you go. So let's talk about TCP optimization. So with TCP protocol, basically when you have any kind of packet loss or congestion, the protocol requires for the throughput to drop in half. And when the throughput drops in half, this is a really aggressive back off, and it causes latency spikes, and it causes a really sharp tooth type of throughput delivery in your network. So I want to tell you how TCPO works. It's actually it can be difficult to explain. So we have a video here that I'll start. And essentially what we have with this video is we have two different networks. The top one won't have TCPO, and the bottom one will have our QoE appliance sitting in between the data center and the network, acting as a proxy. And we're going to send 3 different rounds of packets across this network, and they're 5-second paths, both of them. And you're going to see the packets traverse across the network, and you'll see how the QoE box acts as a proxy and intelligently manages the acknowledgements and the packets across the network. So as we start the download, you can see packet number 1 has been received by the QoE, and an acknowledgement is being set back to the data center. And on the top, without the QoE box and without TCPO, packet number 1 is in transit on the way to the network, and it hasn't sent an acknowledgement back to the data center. Where the QoE box has already received packets 2 and 3 and then sent acknowledgements 2 and 3 back to the data center and starting to deliver packets 2 and 3 to the network, the acknowledgement number 1 without the QoE box is still in transit. Now you can see that we've acknowledged that we've received 2 and 3, and we've also received the 3rd round, and you can see that we've completed all of the different packet deliveries. And I'm going to pause right there. Hopefully that paused. We delivered all 3 round of packets in 17 seconds, whereas without the QoE and without TCPO, it took 25 seconds. So really easy to do the math. That's an 8-second difference. That's about a 32% increase in TCP packet delivery. So that is very simply how TCPO works. I'll advance to my next slide. So network visibility, we have a DPI tool, as I mentioned earlier. And what's great about this is that you can identify the actual traffic that's going across your network. There is UDP traffic that goes across the network as well, and we use FQ Codel to manage that traffic. With the DPI, we can identify these different applications, and we can tell you what time and how much of the application is, how many megs the application is using across your network. With this type of information, we're able to do certain traffic shaping rules that I can talk about, and Brandon will present on and show you in his GUI in real time. But what's great about this is that you can see what your network is using, when it's using it, what the peak consists of, and how can you manage that peak traffic. And you can do this down to a subscriber level. So the tool can be very complicated or it can be very simple. Some people decide or some operators decide that they want to get really down and deep into each subscriber and have different rules. Some just have 3 different rules and make it really, really simple at a high level in their network and make it easy to deploy. So with these top subscriber statistics, you can see all the different applications and what time that they're running across the network, and it allows you to come up with subscriber level statistics. And with those statistics, you can perform certain analysis on the subscribers, and you can determine which of your subscribers may be top talkers and the ones that are using the most bandwidth. And for those of you who know a lot about MuMIMO, you can identify these top talkers and you might be able to move them around in your different sounding groups or off onto a different AP. And that will free up a lot of capacity in MuMIMO APs like the 450M or even EPMP3K. So it helps you optimize your network and it helps you optimize your subscribers. And that gives you more capacity. It also can sort by retransmits and latency, identifying those subscribers that are dragging your APs down or dragging your network down. And then you can develop a list of that different hardware that's dragging them down. And you can perform analysis through your NMS, or you might even have to send a tech out to check on that subscriber because maybe it's off of alignment or there's a cabling issue or something like that. But at the end of the day, what you get is a report that you can pull up every morning and you can proactively manage these different subscribers and make sure that your network is optimized. Some of the subscriber level stats that we see is the subscriber max throughput and usage over time. You also see latency, you'll see retransmits, and active and creative flows. And Brandon will go deeper into this and show the actual GUI and how they're using these different statistics to manage their subscribers and proactively make sure that their customers are having a good user experience. This is another part of the QoE that's great, is that you can see the latency out to the different services. So the NFL Super Bowl just happened, and there was a lot of traffic that goes across everybody's network at those types of events. And it's great to be able to see the different providers, and you can see the latency out to those providers. So if they're having any kind of problems like Amazon Prime had some time ago, then you'll be able to identify that so you can let your customers know that it's an actual service problem and it's not a network problem. Traffic shaping, talked about that a little bit. We can do this actually down to the flows, and we can manage the subscriber rates. So instead of having your radios do the different plans and enforce the plans, you can have the QoE box do that, and that frees up the subscriber to do what it does with its processing speed. And you can also do this down to the flows. So and you can do multi-queuing. So I'm going to show you a little video again on how our multi-queuing works. So what you see is you'll have a YouTube packet that's coming in, and on the top is a shared queue, and on the bottom is an interactive queue with dynamic flows and how we prioritize it. So you can see the flows starting to load up in the different queues. We're serving the bottom with the Netflix and YouTube interactively, and you'll see that Zoom interactive flow came through as a higher priority, and it went right through. So the Zoom call didn't have any kind of buffering issues, whereas on the top shared queue, you'll have buffering issues. So By creating these dynamic flows, you'll ensure that interactive traffic gets through first and has the highest priority, and then streaming will be second, and then anything below that, you can have as many queues as you want. Now, talking about ACM, what we have is actual AI, and it's keeping track of the latency relationship to throughput. And when I talked earlier about the TCP protocol, where it drops half of the throughput because there's some sort of congestion or packet loss, then you'll have a big spike in latency. And so, everybody knows that inconsistent latency and having big spikes in your latency is not good for your network, and it's not good for your end user experience, especially for gamers and those applications that are sensitive to latency. With ACM, which is a feature that's specific to our QoE, and it's included in the purchase price. It's not a license key, or it's not an additional fee. All of these features are all included in the subscription. But with ACM, it's managing it's keeping track of the throughput and the latency and the relationship between the two. And when there is any kind of increase in latency, it will lessen the throughput in 1% increments until the latency starts to come back down and in line with the past history. What the AI knows is the appropriate latency, and then it'll start to ramp the throughput back up. So it's interactively managing in real time the relationship between throughput and latency, smoothing out the latency, giving the end user a better experience. Here's examples, just a couple. You'll see them in real time on Brandon's presentation of his GUI, but you can see when ACM kicks in, you can see the reduction in latency at 12.27%. Now, finally, DDoS attacks. Because of our DPI tool, or a DPI engine, we can actually identify the IP address, and that gives you a quick identification of a DDoS attack, and then you can isolate those. Here's just a picture of the graph that we use with the different DDoS attacks over time. And that's it. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brandon, and he'll take you into his own GUI, and we'll have an interactive discussion between him and I on what he's seeing with his GUI, and what it means to his network and what it means to his end users ultimately. And now I can see Brandon's GUI.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so everybody should be seeing our QoE box GUI here. So we started off at the dashboard screen here, which shows us that we have roughly about 2.3 gigs of downlink traffic going through our deployment right now. It just bumped up to a little bit over 3.1 gigs of downlink traffic, and then 1.39 gig of uplink traffic right now heading out towards the internet. Down here at the bottom, we can see that the TCP optimization numbers running, but we generally see anywhere from about 85 to 90% of our traffic TCP optimized across all of our TCP flows that are going through the QoE box at any given point in time. Talking back to the appliances that Steve mentioned in one of his slides, we actually betaed the small appliance for Cambium up at one of our core tower sites in Fremont County, Wyoming. We were so impressed with what we were seeing as far as bandwidth drops and gains on that device in our very limited beta that we, in very short order, upgraded to a NOC-based bare metal machine that now sees roughly 85% of our network flowing through it at any given point in time.
And Brandon, I think it's important to note the type of network you have. You're running fiber, as you mentioned. You've got all different types of wireless devices. You're not just a pure Cambium shop. And the QoE is agnostic to the wireless brand, and it works across cable as well as fiber.
Yes, that is correct. We do have our fiber network here in Riverton, Wyoming, back behind the QoE box. We have wireless gear out there from Cambium, dating all the way back to the PMP 100 gear for some very legacy packages, all the way up to 450s, 450Is, 450Ms in some locations, as well as some CN wave out in the network as well. On top of that, as far as non-Cambium gear, we do use Ubiquity in some of our spots where smaller subscriber density, where that makes sense for us. And the Ubiquity subscribers see exactly the same benefits that the folks on Cambium gear do. So Steve's absolutely correct. It is vendor agnostic, and we're seeing really great improvements in customer churn and retention rate across the board, across all those different technologies. The Super Bowl was just here this weekend, as everybody knows. We had 4 total calls into our call center during the Super Bowl. One was a radio issue for a CBRS grant that needed reissued. We had one customer that reset their firewall on accident, and we had 2 email issues. So we had absolutely 0 calls relating to streaming the Super Bowl live on the predominantly the Fox Sports app, but we also have subscribers on Fubo, YouTube TV, Hulu Live, really running the spectrum. And Steve and I were kind of actually looking at our numbers here, which I'm trying to get pulled back up for you, as far as what our traffic actually looked like going out to the Fox Sports app, both before and then after the Super Bowl. So what I'm doing here is I'm just limiting out all of these different services so we can really just focus in on the Fox traffic. But what we're seeing here is our DPI hourly statistics across our top 30 categories of traffic over the last 3 days. So if we take a look, we can see that we had really no traffic at all going out to Fox prior to the Super Bowl. No traffic after. It looks like most of our subscribers, it would appear, kind of tuned in for some of the pregame, the halftime show, at which just before the halftime show was kicking off, we were pushing just over 900 megabits of traffic out to Fox during the game. Then started to drop off after the halftime show, and then we've went back to really negligible to no traffic out to Fox. At least it's been identified by DPI on the QoE box.
So Brandon,
yep.
So Brandon, real quick on this, we were talking about this, is that when you look at your upstream and how you plan your upstream, for events like this, you were talking about some savings that can be had when you can identify through DPI the different peaks in your network. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So what we have generally on average seen since our implementation of the QoE box in our network is we've shaved roughly 300 to 400 megabits per second, both directions, off of our 95th percentile bandwidth usage. And for folks that are WISP-centric out there, we all know that, you can buy a 1 gig circuit from a provider, but they give you burst capabilities. And that 95th percentile number is what's used to see what you actually get billed that month for that usage. So that's really allowed us to get out ahead of swings in traffic. With just the savings that we've seen, we haven't had to do any augmentation on our core at all for these big streaming events. And it's really saved us money, but it has also really improved our customers' perception and our access. Our churn has dropped to nearly nothing. And what churn we are seeing across our network is really customers moving to an area that we can't service them.
Okay.
It was really interesting to see what our numbers started to look like after we implemented the QoE box, but our number of calls relating to speed issues, to not only just any speed test site out there, but buffering on streaming services predominantly, gaming latency has dropped off to really nothing. We're to the point where if a customer is having an issue, it's generally that their radio has come out of alignment, or there's some sort of localized Ethernet issue, or customers are connecting up and they have 30 devices on their Wi-Fi router at their house, all on 2.4 on a 20 or a 40 meg channel. That's just seeing the issue there. But even we've even seen gains on that with TCP optimization and the ACM by having the QoE box in the network.
Right. And what you're showing us here, though, this is internet latencies from Fox Video during the Super Bowl.
Yes, that's correct. And you can see a real nice color-coded graph that, again, really shows that we had no traffic to Fox prior to the game, no traffic afterwards. And most of the time, our latency from our network out to Fox was, for the most part, 90+% running in the 0 to 10 millisecond time frame. You know, we have a little bit where we're 6% of our traffic at 20 to 30 milliseconds, but generally everything was in that 0 to 10 second range, which is just absolutely fantastic, especially given the additional load that was put on the network for all the folks that were wanting to stream the game, because Fox did open it up live and free to stream through the Fox Sports app.
Right. Yeah. And we'll talk about ACM here a little bit later, but it's nice that you guys have this because you can actually use that latencies, the total latency to the different services. And don't you guys write some sort of a script to put that onto your website so your customers can see?
So we do have a script. We have not turned it live on the website yet, but
Okay.
we have wrote a script that will automatically publish to our website our top 10 traffic services based on DPI and the latency out to those services from the QoE box. But we actually also took it a step further, and we've written a script which I can show you what it would look like in the GUI here in a bit. But we've actually wrote up a script that averages our subscriber latency downstream from the QoE box across our network, so we can publish that number as well. Where this will be important is the broadband nutrition labels, for a lack of better words, that are going to be getting released and pushed out and required by the FCC here a little bit later on this year.
Right. Okay.
So perfect. So I think the next thing we'll take a look at here is our TCP optimization here. So this is an average over our last 24 hours. So you can see that we've seen a speed increase of about 17.3%, just due to the fact that we have the QoE box in place and TCP optimization is turned on. You know, our biggest main service over here that we've seen about a 24% increase out to Netflix.
Right.
You know, you'll see Hulu.com and Apple are showing NS. And my understanding is that this is actually being worked on, but generally when the numbers are as close as they are for these services, the QoE box right now doesn't depict that gain or drop, and sometimes it can actually see a gain when they are close as a drop. But nevertheless, I mean, we're really seeing some awesome gains just due to having the box in place with TCP optimization turned on.
And for those LTE devices in your network, or those people running LTE networks, can we take a look at the upload real quick?
Sure.
So you can see that TCPO works in the uplink as well. By speeding up that packet delivery, you know, you're helping your different, you know, your uplink congestion. And, you know, as we all know, the one downfall of the LTE networks is that, you know, the choking point is in the uplink, right? That's where we're getting a lot of good feedback from LTE centric networks, where they're really happy with the QoE box, helping them with that uplink. And you can do certain traffic shaping in the uplink as well to also help with that choking point. So.
Yep. And I think one of the nicest features of the QoE box, I mean, one of the nicer features is, you know, being able to prioritize VoIP traffic over that if an operator is offering that right at the QoE box. Because for a lot of vendors out there, that will actually end up saving an operator from needing to get an EPC in-house, which is another potential single point of failure. and a lot of times they're extremely complex. The interfaces are antiquated and outdated, and just somewhat of a generalized hassle there.
Right.
So the next thing I think we'll look at is we'll go look at our congestion and our ATM stats over the last day here. So this top graph here is showing us our average traffic under congestion and with ACM. So what we're seeing here is, 56% of our max speed traffic, 31% of that was considered congested traffic. However, ACM was offsetting that 31.4% of traffic down to about 24.4%. You can actually see a spot here in our network where there's a couple of them where we're actually, ACM is kicking in and totally handling almost or 100% of that congested traffic.
Yeah, this is an amazing feature. It's available to some of the higher end competitors to our QoE, but you have to pay for it, and it's a license key. But it's an awesome feature because it reduces and smooths out that latency, and that's what we're seeing here in this graph. And as a general statement, what we've been hearing is it's reducing your latency by 20 or 30% during times of congestion. So it's a real good latency tool. And I think that you're going to, do you have, well, we'll get into the individual subscribers.
Yep. Just a couple more things I wanted to point on here. Our average latency reduction with ACM, we're seeing anywhere from about 5 milliseconds all the way up to nearly 20 seconds, 15, 16 seconds of latency reduction just due to the fact that ACM is on and looking at those packets and taking care of them. The bottom graph again, reduction in retransmissions due to ACM. And there we're seeing anywhere from about 0.5% up to 1.2 to 1.3% reduction in retransmissions across our network due to ACM being turned on and the QoE box being implemented into our network.
And one thing I keep forgetting to ask you is that, what does that mean to your end users? I know a lot of folks on the phone are probably pretty technical, and they can, but are you hearing from your customers that latency has been improved, or are you seeing that in your employees where latency is being improved and they're telling you that services is improved?
We absolutely are, and we'll talk about this, and this is not just ACM, but we'll get into our flow tree here in a bit. But one of the biggest improvements that we've seen, since it seems like everybody is switching to one or multiple streaming services as their primary source of entertainment, that pulling up videos on whether it be Hulu, Netflix, Fubo, YouTube TV, you can switch back and forth between videos, and it's like you're zapping and doing channel zapping on an old cable or a satellite box by hitting the last button to go back to the last show you're watching. We have our company president actually made a video of him firing up Netflix at his house, and I wish we had that. I know he's trying to dig back and find where he put that, but it has brought the streaming service to look like you are tuning into a cable set-top box, predominantly in the streaming. Another big one is gamers. We all know that gamers' latency is key. I can't even recall the last time we've had a trouble ticket since implementing the QoE box that we have had a gamer calling in and reporting latency problems on their online multiplayer gaming.
It's all good stuff.
Yep. I think we can look at our flows here. So right now, by default, we're still working on getting some things built into our QoE box. We are working on setting it up to be the shaping device on our network. So right now, most everything is in the default flow, but we are actually looking, once we get the shaping tuned in, to actually turn this box into a revenue generator for our network by offering some prioritized video streaming packages, gaming packages that will help better control latency and speeds for folks that are heavy into the streaming and into the gaming side of things. And really just because we've seen so much of a gain right now by just what we've done with the implementation of the box and the network, we really are excited about what opportunities that's going to give us to turn the box into an actual revenue generator and provide a better experience to our customers as well.
Right.
So subscriber metrics, this is all of our subscribers. We can see what rate policy they're tied to, how much traffic they're pushing through current, average, and max, along with their round trip times, congestion stats as well, and data transferred. So I'm actually going to pick on myself here.
So this is the part of the QoE box where you could use this to proactively identify, top talkers and poorly performing hardware, and you can optimize it. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep. Well, are you going to pull me up?
I think these are always going to take a little bit of time to pull.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so this is actually my fiber at my house. So we can see my downlink congestion average is roughly 0.5%. We can see uplink sent and received bytes. We can see TCP optimized uplink and downlink bytes in there. We can see the average speed that I'm passing here through. This is just over the last day, both in the uplink and the downlink direction, which is really handy. If you do have a customer calling in and saying, things are slow, this gives us the opportunity to look at their average speed and say, well, you're on a 50 meg package, and 95% of the time you're pushing 45 megabits down and 3 megabits up. How about we look at upselling you to our 100 by 25 fixed wireless package? But it also shows us flows, maximum speed. So my firewall at home runs a speed test out to, it'll just pick a random speedtest.net server once an hour, so we can see the spikes where I'm pulling generally 800 plus meg on my gig, with in addition to everything else that I have going on flowing through my network at the time, which I generally average about 20 megabits per second, pretty constant from my house. But it also gives you latency stats as well, not only from out to the internet, but it also shows latency back over to that's in subscriber module. In my case, it's fiber, so it's back to my firewall. But I also get to see a wealth of information like packet retransmissions, my average traffic under congestion, and again, drilling down into the specific subscriber level detail, how much of a gain I'm seeing from ACM there. Along with some of those stats we looked at earlier, the reduction in latency with ACM and reduction in retransmissions with ACM on.
So Brandon, a lot of people that I talk to trying to get them to buy our QoE, they say that, well, I've got fiber, so I don't have any problems. But from what I'm learning is that even though you've got fiber to the home, you'll have a Wi-Fi network behind that, and you can have all kinds of congestion and retransmits and latency issues behind the fiber. Is that something that you're seeing in your fiber side of the house?
We do see that on occasion. And a lot of times, believe it or not, it's what we'll see customers that have a fairly decent, off-the-shelf firewall, and it just doesn't have the CPU on it to actually handle the package that they're on. So that starts causing latency that causes dropouts. We did have a customer down the street from us on our fiber network that did a lot of Twitch and live streaming to promote their business, but they were also gamers. And we would get calls once every couple of weeks that our service is terrible. They're seeing their speeds, but they're seeing dropouts in their video. We actually ended up turning that into an upsell opportunity and upsold them onto one of our higher end leased firewalls, and their issues went away.
Oh, nice.
just because it just did not have the horsepower to handle all those little packets streaming out when they were on live stream and Twitch, along with everything else they had going on their network. So we definitely have seen that, and with the wealth of stats that we can get in our QoE box, it makes it really easy to identify for us. And a lot of times turn these situations where a customer may be saying, your service sucks, turn it into an upsell opportunity and actually get those customers turned into proponents for us, because we were able to go in and get them fixed up in a timely manner and prove that it was in fact not the network or the delivery to them.
Yeah, and there's a high amount of confidence built with the customer. If they say, hey, I'm having a problem, you can drill in and say, yeah, we see what the problem is and we know what the fix is fairly quickly, right?
Exactly. That shortens the time that they're on the call with folks in our call center. It lessens the amount of time that my NOC engineers need to take really digging in, because we do have really all the information we would want or need in this single pane of glass in our QoE box. It has turned us into and turning us more into it being a one source stop to troubleshoot customer issues as they come in.
Great. All right.
So let's see here. Looked here per policy. Here our top talkers across our network, which Steve had a static slide, but this is our top 20 subscribers over the last few days. Really great information. Hover over at a certain point in time, we can see how much our top talkers were talking, how much bandwidth they were utilizing, and just get really some great network information out of that. You can kick it as low as 5 subs or up to, and expand that up to 30 subs as well.
Well, one of the operators I was talking to has a lot of 450Ms, and one of the things that's being fixed with release 22, this multiple frames per grouping, but is that when you get a certain sector of or a grouping of that 450M and mu-MIMO congested with top talkers or a lot of them, then it holds back the other mu-MIMO sections, right? It hits its max utilization rate. So by identifying these top talkers, you may not, but you may have an opportunity to move them off onto a different AP, and that frees up capacity. So it's just these little things that we're learning through the QoE box and learning through talking to operators that allow us to maximize mu-MIMO gains and get more capacity out of the existing hardware, which is great because no operator wants to invest in a new AP or more APs and then climb the tower, having their installation crews doing infrastructure upgrades when they could be out doing SM installs. So it saves you capital, saves your labor.
Yep, absolutely. Just another quick little view here, pie chart of top talkers. So I guess the other, we've already kind of looked at our DPI service using the Super Bowl as an example. This will take a bit to pull back up again because I dropped it back to 3 days here. We can walk through these last couple of screens, and then I think what I'd like to do is actually show kind of how our flow tree's set up, Steve. Talk about that a little bit, because we've had the box in place since roughly last July. But as things have evolved and we've learned more about the box and new software releases have come out, it's really opened up the opportunities we have. So again, we have a flow chart here showing our total volume per service. So we can see that over the last day across 20 categories, almost 10% of our traffic is out to Netflix. Another almost 7 is out to Apple. Almost 7% out to Hulu. Got the old TikTok in there for all the teens and tweens that are out there. So, but latency per service, we chatted on this as well.
I think Jonathan is also a big TikToker.
I haven't started yet.
So average latency out to the internet from our QoE box per identified service, I just have it in the default 10 category view. You can drop up to as many as 30 categories. So, if we just look at Netflix as an example, we'll see our distribution of our internet latencies to Netflix. You can see, generally we're pretty well, most of 90% of our traffic, we're 30 to 35 milliseconds out from our QoE box to Netflix's nearest CDN and server setup. Very, very few customers in that 55 to 60 and even about 0.5% in that 25 to 30 millisecond range. But we can also pull up a different view of this as well. So this is our all average. So, we can see worst case, we're looking 60 to 70 milliseconds for less than 1% of our traffic at this given point in time out to something on the internet, since this is the all average graph that I pulled up, but really gives you great insight into not only what your network's doing, but what your view out to the internet from the QoE box looks like as well. We have seen real bad peering at times with our upstreams where, instead of taking, the best route at the time, maybe due to congestion or whatnot, they need to reroute that traffic. QoE box makes it real easy to identify that and get a ticket called in with our upstream operators to get that back into what we would consider our normal and our average range to that service. DOS attacks. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to say, let's talk about DDoS for a second.
Yep. So DOS attacks over time. This is just over the last day coming off of our network. This graph is useful as an overview. We've actually used the SYN attacks section of the DOS attacks portion of QoE to identify a couple users that did have compromised devices on their network. One of our customers they had a Wi-Fi smart thermostat that was sending out a ton of SYN traffic to the tune of about 2 megs upload consistently out of their 5 meg upload that they had purchased. The QoE box made it real easy for us to identify where that traffic was going, who was initiating that traffic, and working with the customer to get it resolved and get their network secured. And then another gain that we saw on that, they do happen to be on a 450M. Once we were able to get that traffic isolated and turned off and have the customer get the device replaced, we actually saw a CPU gain on both his SM and on our Medusa AP because it wasn't having to handle the constant flow of that traffic. So it's been a really very useful tool for us. And we're actually working on through the QoE API, which we haven't really mentioned or talked too much about. Getting an automated report set up so we can look back over the last day and automatically have a report of users that are participating or launching DOS attacks, get those out to our my network operations team, so we can actually further get out ahead of that before the customer really even notices there's an issue.
Right.
Last chunk, DOS attack or DOS volume attacks. This is fairly old information that just hasn't rotated out when we had this on our LAN doing some testing. Obviously, it's an RFC 1918 non-routable IP. So last thing I kind of wanted to look at is our flow tree and how we have it set up. You can see that we're in the process of getting this fully built out the way we want it. One of the first things we did when we got the QoE box in the network is, we've limited pretty much all of the video streaming services down to 7 megabits per second per stream. Outside of Paramount Plus, which we were still seeing some buffering at our company president's home, and we tweaked that a little bit, and we ended up breaking out Paramount Plus into its own because we found that given it 15 megabits per second per stream, knocked the buffering down to a minimum, if not totally killing it off, and just made it flow just so much smoother. Again, back to that talk that what we talked about earlier, where switching videos is like we're switching channels on a cable set-top box.
Right.
The speed test stuff we have in here. This is some legacy stuff we had in before Cambium actually brought the automated speed test detection into the QoE box here a couple of releases ago. But you can also see we've got our gaming packages set up and are real close to start getting those sold, along with some of our prep for our traffic shaping to move the QoE box to be the single source of traffic shaping in our network that's automatically updated out of our CRM system when a customer turns around and decides, they want to go from our 50 by 5 up to our 100 by 25 package. API call will push that out and they'll be dropped into the correct speed shaping profile and good to go.
And this is a big selling point, is that it's a bandwidth optimization tool, and so you're not really limiting or degrading any type of service. What you're doing is you're determining what service needs what to deliver a non-buffering, high quality streaming experience to the end user. I've heard from a couple of guys that have installed the box that they just went through a network-wide upgrade. They upgrade all their AC Gen 2 prisms to LTU and upgraded all their backhaul. I can't recall, to be honest with you, but I think it was to the tune of about $500,000, right? And they saw all of that extra capacity that they upgraded, hoping to have another 3 to 5 years of infrastructure and capacity to service their customers. They saw it all sucked up by auto scaling, where the applications will test the capacity of the pipe that they have, and then they try and take it all, which basically creates a false peak in your network. So these rules basically are showing that depending on your different plan, you can limit applications or traffic shape applications to the optimum amount of bandwidth they need to deliver, say, a 4K streaming experience without any buffering, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And that saves you, like you said, 300-400 megs during peak times?
On our 95th percentile average, okay. Yes, it's anywhere between 3 to 400 megabits per second, really both directions.
Right. Okay. And again, to pound the point home is that saves your capital and saves your labor, and it also creates some savings in your upstream purchasing, right?
Yes, and it makes what we've already deployed in our network, it's making it last longer. It's stretching the useful life of that gear without having to go out and forklift upgrade, add a bunch of APs. We're getting better customer performance and results for really doing not much in the way of a forklift upgrade or a mass upgrade across our network.
Right. Okay. And a lot of people are going to ask about business case, and that's something that I think that those have been through the entire webinar with us. They're hearing, you've reduced churn. That's something that obviously is expensive. When you lose a customer, you lose the revenue. It's hard to market to customers and get them to come over from a competitor. So by reducing churn, you're saving money, reducing support calls. Like you said, you've gone from a few support calls to absolutely none. Even during the Super Bowl, you got some support calls, but they weren't performance related.
Uh-huh.
And then being able to reduce your peak network load that extends your useful life of your hardware, reduces the forklifts that you have to do, and creating loyal customers where they might complain, but then you talk to them, you upsell them, and you create them into proponents for the brand, for Wyoming.com. And then finally, to talk about the cost of it. I did the math for you, so you don't have to. But you're at a 10 gig service. You did a 5-year subscription, paid quarterly, which allows you some flexibility there. Across your 5,800-ish subscribers, that breaks down to 19 cents per subscriber per month.
Yes, sir.
So I feel like, looking at the cost of other QoE devices, I would say that this is the cheapest QoE monthly subscription that you can buy out there. And hopefully with all of the features and things that you've demonstrated today, it's also one of the most capable. So
I would agree. And for anybody that might be wondering, the ease of deployment for this solution is it is literally plug and play. Literally plug and play. You know, we did it twice. We did it once with the appliance that we were betaing up at our main aggregation tower site here in Fremont County. And that did not change when we upgraded to the NOC-based box and threw this into the network down in our NOC. You know, so I mean, it's extremely easy for an operator to deploy with very minimal effort. The Cambium team's been great on support. You know, we were at the time we were betaing the QoE appliance. We found that we'd partnered with DirecTV Stream to offer TV services through us and DirecTV, their streaming platform, to our customers. We found that there wasn't a profile in there to optimize that traffic. Within 2 business days, reaching out to support and working with the Cambium team, we had instructions on, I think, the 3 steps and maybe the 15 minutes it took us to get that built into our box and have it ready to go and have it optimizing that traffic for those customers. So super easy to deploy. Really, once you get it in there and you get it set the way you want, it's set it and forget it, for lack of a better phrase.
yeah,
And we really love the box and what it's done for our network.
great. Well, with that, Jonathan, do you want to switch to Q&A and see what questions we might have?
Absolutely, and thank you very much. A couple of questions did come in. We have a couple minutes here to review a few of them. Most of them have been answered because you both did such a good job presenting, but we'll use this as a little recap. One of the questions is, when optimizing with traffic shaping, are there predetermined signatures or rules that Cambium uses, and how hard is it to implement traffic shaping?
So we do have predetermined signatures, and we upgrade those with each firmware update that we do in case Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime changes their requirements. But we do have predetermined signatures that come from knowing what the different applications need to deliver, like I said, a high definition, non-buffering streaming experience to the customer. And we have different customers that feed us information on, hey, we found this to be really useful. And so we can always give recommendations. As Brandon mentioned, we have a great support, and we've got RTMs, that regional technical managers, that are very versed in the box, and they can also help their customers decide what rules that they want to do. Some people aren't even using the DPI; they just rely on TCPO, ACM, and the ability to identify underperforming hardware. But for those who want to use DPI, we do have predetermined rules, and they're easy to implement. We can send you a zip file, and away it goes.
Awesome, thank you. Another question is, will having a more efficient and optimized network help me qualify for more government grants?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of government grant winners that are Cambium users, and they use the government grants have certain requirements. A lot of them are speed tests, and we talked about that speed test feature and how it can be used. I think that when you look at it, a lot of times you have to deliver this type of speed to this percentage of users in a certain area. So by using QoE, you can ensure and be confident that you'll meet those requirements.
Great. This next one we did cover a little bit, but we can review it again. It's, my WISP is a combination of Cambium and other vendors. Will the QoE solution work on mixed networks, and what about fiber or cable?
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, like you said, it's brand agnostic. It doesn't matter what wireless brand. It doesn't matter what technology. It works on cable. It works on fiber. It works on wireless. So if you're a service provider out there, we've got QoE. We can do free trials. If you've got your own hardware, it's really easy for us to give you a free trial license, and you can see it work on your network yourself and get the results and determine if it's a good value to you or not.
Awesome. And one more question, but this one actually I can answer. Can I try this out before committing? So the answer is absolutely. If anyone is interested in a QoE trial or starter kit, or with any other Cambium needs, just give us a call at ISP Supplies. Our number here is 855-947-7776 or 855-WISP-PRO. Or you can shoot us an email at sales@ispsupplies.com, and we can answer any questions and help get you set up with a trial or with a starter kit for the QoE solution. So, and well, that wraps up our presentation today. Thanks again, Steve, for that in-depth overview, and for Brandon for sharing your experience with QoE and going through the user interface and all the slides there. We'll be uploading today's webinar to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ISP Supplies. We'll also be sharing it all over our Facebook as well as our page. So make sure to also follow us and subscribe at facebook.com/ISP Supplies. So we appreciate everybody making time to join us today, and wishing everyone a lovely rest of your Valentine's Day and a great rest of your week.
And thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Brandon, big shout out to you. Thanks for sharing.
Yep, not a problem, guys.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.